But then the nose does begin to take on a bit of perspective. I'm also getting a sense of the depth of the skull here. It's a little bit fun to do this, by the way. There we go. So now I've got a sense of the skull. I also know the skull is usually bigger than what we want to believe. You know, the cranium comes down. I'm kind of feeling my way through that and finding the jaw. Where is it under that ear? And here's where I said the chin is. But now I have to find that jaw, that cheekbone. Looking for the skull here. I'm looking for the skull. Now I'm going to take my chamois cloth and get rid of those marks going around the head. I don't need those anymore. They go back. I can't really see through the head anyway, so they're not important. Okay, now I'm squinting my eyes down, looking for that shape map. I want to think like a photocopy machine. I just want to simplify it all down into two values, and that's the way that I'll capture the gestalt of the thing. So here we go. Here's this big interruption of darkness there. I can see the skull now much more clearly. As the skull turns back here, and really I can't see anything in that shadow over there. Good, let's go ahead and get that in. And there's that plane of the nose that protrudes out. Please don't worry about likeness or anything like that. Right now we're just getting the shape map down. We're looking for the gestalt and we're describing form only. And there's that great shadow under the chin. Already I can tell that I'm expanding my drawing, like always, making it a little bit bigger than what I had originally planned. I'll have to get in there and erase and do some correcting. It's okay. But already we can start to see these values, these two values that I'm talking about. That's what I want to concern myself with. One note here. And then we drop these plumb lines. If we had a plumb line that dropped straight down from Fred's pupil all the way down through, I think the tip, the opening there, just as I start to see the chest, falls right under that pupil there, somewhere in here. And that also falls down and determines this outside of the corner of the mouth. And then we come in with the edge here of the nose, which I can't really see, so I'll go for the pupil instead. I'll make a little note of darkness there. I don't really want to get too caught up in all that. I'm starting to get sidetracked. Squinting my eyes down, let's see, what do we have here? Do you think that we could look at this and actually say someone's trying to draw a human? I think so. So that means we've got to keep on going. Let's get rid of these marks. We don't need them anymore. See how I'm using this chamois cloth? You know, you can pick up these chamois cloths at any auto supply store, and they're just, make sure you get the real ones, the soft suede. Cut them into quarters or whatever, get the small one, and then stretch and work them. And it helps to get them nice and dirty so that you have a side here that can make a mark, and then this can be used like an eraser. Eventually they get all nice and soft and they're dirty all over, but that's a good thing. Okay, now I want you to think in angles. I want you to think like a sculptor who's chiseling out a big chunk of marble or something. You wouldn't be going for soft, rounded edges then. Let's go in and kind of draw with a point and look for the angles. Remember to stand back. It's good to be about arm's length. I know it's really tempting to pull up and kind of draw like that. Don't do it. Also take note that my paper is tilted a little bit forward as it's attached to the easel so that that charcoal dust kind of just falls off the drawing. And I like to connect the darks. Look for a way to connect it into one shape. Just one shape. Using negative space now. I see a negative, what's not Fred here in the background, that's negative space, that is darker. And I'll use the negative space to describe an outside or start to make a note of the outside. Now remember, all of this can be moved. We're making our first initial marks now. We can always erase this. This isn't in stone, so that's a good thing. we can change everything later. See how we're starting to get this form? I'm not concerned at all that it doesn't look like Fred. It doesn't matter. That's just not important. Likeness is not what we're after right now. A sense of actual form, the gestalt of this is what we're after. But I will tell you that if you get the gestalt and you land it properly, you'll start to see a likeness. And all of this is dark that comes down here. So it's another part. This is all a part. See how I'm just working as a zigzag? This is all a part of that one big shape. Now I'm just going to intuitively look for this big shape here at this point. I can go in and test it and measure it later. It goes down there. Remember when I said something about that pupil, and I've got that plumb line. See that plumb line going down? It goes down like that. I want to make sure I'm following. That gives a nice lead in and a direction. We've got the shoulders turned away and the head going another way. It gives kind of a twist. It gives some interest to the pose. And now I'm also looking for where that, there's a little bright spot there, and I want to make a note here. I'm just going to make a little note of this bright spot on the collar, because I think later toward the end it'll be really dynamic and important. All these nice shapes here. There's a big direction here with a nice dark shape. I don't want to get into this too much because this may change, but it lets me see if my measurements are all those things I was measuring for earlier, if it's working. And I love the way, isn't it fabulous, the way that this collar is getting ready to follow that diagonal? Wonderful. Love it. And see this negative space? We look at this negative space here, and the negative space will help us determine, the edge of that shoulder. Also, always look and pay attention. Let's pretend the edge of this shoulder is just going to shoot straight through, and as we shoot straight through with the edge of that shoulder, pay attention to where it would run through the head and exit out like this, and that will determine the back of this collar. That's the top of the collar. I'm going to make a little note of this, that this is the top of the collar, and this is the shadow of the collar that goes in. Then it sweeps around. I want to keep it angular though, a little bit. And comes. I'm a little off here. Now it's time to use the eraser. Remember when I said that this toned paper will give us so much leeway in terms of lifting out, and we use erasers as a drawing tool. Now watch what happens here. I'm going to go in, there's a little highlight here, and I'm not encouraging you to jump into highlights too soon, but I need to define this shadow light shape. Remember the shape map? I need to define my shape map just a little bit right here. The reason I need to is because this is a measuring point right here for me. Right here is a measuring point that I'm continuing to use. And I'm getting ready to measure from that point, make a plumb line down. It sets back a little bit, I think. And then if I drop a plumb line down, I think that setting back a little bit, a little off center here will lead me down to that fabulous point that I want to pay attention to later. Now, this distance is in question from here to here. So this is the distance that I'm going to measure. Here I go. I'm measuring from, let's take the point, from that point to the collar, and I'm going to find something else on the face that is equal to that distance right here, right now. I'm sliding it up. Here I'm sliding it up. Now the thumb is here, and I'm going to slide up and see with this one eye squinted. It's about like at the corner of the eye, where the eye would come in eventually. So let's test it. Oh no, I thought not. Okay, so I have to drop this down right away. I'm compressing in here and I don't want to do that. Not that it matters that much, really, but, well, it'll make the drawing a lot better. Okay, So somewhere in there. It also opens up this collar. Now I don't want to get too far into this right now, because you can start getting, I think this is coming in a little out too far. But right now, the important thing is that I'm making a note here that this is a part of the design. This is important, that this will eventually be an important part of the design. It won't be the most important part, but it will strengthen and act as a pedestal to the drawing. So I'm just making little notes there, and I can come back and change all this. Now we're starting to break into 3 tones, a light, a middle, and a dark. I don't want to do too much of that yet, but let me show you how it can help you with your drawing. I'm going to try to figure out where maybe that highlight of the nose might end up being. I may change it a million times, but right now it will help me determine how big this plane is here. Let me use this eraser to draw there. And I think it's around in here. And there's some transition. I'll just soften that edge there. I'm using a charcoal pencil here, just lightly drawing. And that cast shadow, I really love these crazy cast shadows that are created by the frames of the glasses. So I'm just going to make a little note of that. I think it's looking kind of good already.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop and the book that accompanies this series are now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.